Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So exciting news, I just realized that today I have 72 subscribers. So I'm very excited and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for joining and embarking on this journey with me. It seems like yesterday that I started off this journey with 3 subscribers, who most of them are my family members, and I am so thrilled and excited to grow this channel and to bring more values to you guys. So if you have any suggestions or any topics in the areas of business analysis or self-motivation or personal development, then please let me know and I will try my best to incorporate those ideas and create better contents in the future. So I don't know about you, but oh man, September was a very incredibly busy month for me. It's just all but a big blur, and I can't believe October is already here. Halloween is literally just around the corner. On a personal level, I recently moved into a new place, so as you can see, that setup is a little bit different. Instead of a barren white wall, we have a little bit more decorations and furniture in the background, and so that's been a big project for me in terms of packing your life and figuring out what exactly you need, and then moving into a different place definitely takes a lot of work and effort, and I'm hoping that I don't have to move anytime soon. Also, I've been taking a change management course for the month of September, and I'm still working on assignments that are due this Sunday, so I've been very busy and I've been working 6-day week for the last 3-4 weeks because of all the readings and the courses that I have to attend in person on every single Sunday. So in my work life, I've been just as busy because I have 3 projects that I'm currently involved in, and they're all in this requirement analysis stage, which I'm going to talk about later in the video. But literally I've been reading functional documentations of 30-something pages back to back for the last couple of days, and let me tell you, I enjoy reading, but I don't really enjoy reading technical functional documentations back to back, and just reading it 3 times makes it that much worse and painful. So in today's BA series video, I want to deep dive into Business Analysis Essential as defined by International Institute of Business Analysis, and talk about different classifications of requirements and at what point they're going to be delivered. So if this is something that you want to find out more, then stay tuned and keep on watching.
Okay, so I wanted to focus today on Business Analysis Essentials, which is a framework that has been defined by International Institute of Business Analysis. And I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there that most of my information is based on my research and on my personal experience. So I hope you guys find it useful, but if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments below. So let's look at the knowledge area, relationships, as well as the flowchart. So I just want you to take a look at the umbrella of business analysis planning and monitoring phase. And we're going to go into more details of each phase and how one impacts another. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, I just want you to focus on that there are different levels and phases of business analysis, because we always talk about, analytical skills, or, what do business analysts do? But underneath that hood of business analysis, there are many different layers and different areas that you need to focus on. And that's going to really help you based on your core competencies, such as analytical skills, communication skills, listening skills, documentation skills, decision-making skills, right? So utilizing your core competencies, this is sort of the business analysis overview of what are some of the key areas that you have to do when we say, when we talk about performing business analysis. So, what exactly is business analysis planning and monitoring entail? So, this is the beginning or high level phase where we talk about how exactly our business analyst going to determine which activities are necessary in order to complete the business analysis effort. Examples can include things like identification of key stakeholders. And then oftentimes it also requires, if it involves different departments, then you kind of have to agree on the business analysis tools and techniques as well, because I'm going to show you later in the video that there are so many different mapping techniques that you can use. But in order for you to really reap the benefits of business analysis, you have to kind of agree on what kind of techniques and what kind of documentation you're going to be focusing on. Also, they have to discuss and determine the process of how to manage those requirements. How are we going to capture them? How are we going to document them? Who's going to be the reviewers or approvers of those documents? And then which templates are we going to use? And then you also have to think about how to assess the progress of work with a given timeline. And it basically governs the performance of all other business analysis tasks that are deemed appropriate or deemed required for that project or that initiative that you're working on. Enterprise analysis. This is how business analysts can identify the business requirements, goals, or objectives at a more high level in order to clarify the problem or challenges that you're trying to solve, right? So they tend to be more high level at the enterprise level. So this some of the examples can be, having a problem definition and being able to identify areas of opportunity. And sometimes enterprise analysis can include defining a solution scope that can be implemented at a later time. So this can include feasibility study and business case development. Personally, I've only worked on enterprise analysis once or twice on big capital projects because it oftentimes requires capital projects require business case development and feasibility study. Like, it doesn't have to be really extensive, but we have to have a pretty good pros and cons analysis and pretty strong business case in order to support the reasons why we need to have this capital projects. So for me, I wouldn't say this is something that you have to do every time when you do business analysis, but more big scale projects tend to have enterprise analysis as one of the first steps, just because it then helps build that business case if you want to actually help the business to get the funding that they need in order to proceed. So here is another really good example of what the difference between enterprise analysis versus business analysis is. So as I've mentioned before, enterprise analysis tends to focus more on the strategic objectives and strategy of the organization and how this particular capital project is going to help enterprises to get to the next level, right? So let's say, for example, my company has this strategic vision of expanding and growing by 50% within the next 5 years. Let's just say that that's my overall company's goal, and our CEO has been talking about breaking into a new market through merger and acquisition, right? So that is where our company is trying to grow, and we're in a growth mode and we're buying other companies in order to make that happen. So for me, whenever I work on merger and acquisition project, it is most often capital project. Then, our enterprise analysis would be easier because our goal of growth is actually very much aligned to our enterprise level of vision of where our company should be in the next 5 to 10 years. Whereas business analysis, as I mentioned before, can optimize current operations and efficiencies. It can also include activities like business process improvements and day-to-day production oversight as well. So they tend to focus more on how. And enterprise analysis domain most often focuses on the why. Elicitation. So this includes how business analysts work with key stakeholders to identify and understand their needs and environment in which they work. So this includes understanding stakeholder needs and concerns, ensuring stakeholders' needs are crystal clear and understood, also ensuring stakeholders' actual needs are understood as opposed to superficial desires or nice to haves. And I can totally relate to this the elicitation problems diagram in the bottom half of this presentation, because there is so true. Oftentimes, elicitation sounds almost easier on paper than as compared to having to work with people in real world, because sometimes the knowledge is everywhere, and it's even a simple business process. Once you start talking to people, you'll be surprised by how many different people own that one part of that process. So oftentimes I would have to go around in big circle in order to find out how exactly this department is handling this one particular process. You'll be surprised. So in my follow-up videos, I'm thinking of doing some of the challenges of being a BA and some of the techniques on how to overcome them. But elicitation is definitely one of the biggest challenges of being a BA, because sometimes people change their minds. People think that they want A, but really what they need is B. But then they don't know how to talk about the requirements that are needed for B because they've never had it before, right? So these are some of the very common challenges of elicitation phase. And that's why it's sort of in a cycle. If you remember in that diagram, it's sort of like a loop cycle, because oftentimes we have to go back and review some of the requirements once we start to gather more information. It's a phase where you bring all that knowledge and information together and you try to prioritize them and see if you can find any common themes, if you can prioritize and progressively elaborate stakeholders' requirements and solutions in order to really see, like, do you see any pattern? Right? So that includes like assessing current state of what's happening today within the organization or business to identify that opportunities for. And then you have to also analyze and define solutions that meet the needs of your customers or stakeholders. And then you also have to validate the resulting requirement. Diagram, you can see there are many different ways of techniques for this requirement analysis, and basically this is the phase where you're sort of identifying the needs of different stakeholders, right? So you can actually use different techniques such as focus groups, brainstorming sessions, observation or job shadowing. You can also do interviews or surveys. The next phase is solution assessment and validation, where you can actually go through and assess proposed solutions to determine which one of them best fits the business need. And then this is also where you can identify gaps and or shortcomings in the solution. You can also determine necessary workarounds or solution changes as well. And then you can assess solutions and effectiveness after the fact to verify how they met the original business needs. So this is sort of the final stage before we go into the development mode of building or developing the product or services that you're trying to create, right? So this is where you can actually say, okay, the business actually required 5 different things based on my research and analysis, and I can cross-reference that the proposed solution number 1 actually will be able to help drive business operational efficiency and, all these other objectives that you're trying to achieve as a result of bringing this change. And then requirements management and communication. This is a continuous process throughout the project, so I don't want you to think that this is just like a one-time thing, especially for communication. It really refers to how business analysts manage conflicts, issues, and requests for changes in order to ensure that stakeholders and the project team remain in agreement and making sure that they're aligned on the solution's scope and requirement. So requirements are inevitably, like I am 99% certain based on my past experience, that they're going to change throughout the project lifecycle. So they need to be kept in the loop and they need to be informed and what kind of impact it's going to have as a result of requirement changing. So that's the reason why we have change requests, where you can actually bring your changes to your business requirements and bring them up to project management, and then get an agreement that the scope of the work or the scope of the business requirements is essentially changing, right? But at certain point, you have to sort of finalize and draw the line in the sand, because if you keep on dragging the requirements out, then inevitably your project timeline and milestones are going to be delayed as well. So we often have a strict timeline, as in terms of defining the scope and requirements gathering stage. So the key takeaway from today's video is I want you to think about underlying competencies of becoming a good business analyst. So things like communication skills, decision-making skills, being able to listen to other people, and documenting and driving business requirements. These are all very important skill sets that are critical for your success to become a good business analyst. But under the umbrella of business analysis, there are so many other subset of activities that are going on, and at different phases, sometimes you have to go around in circles, as you can see in iterations. So it's not just something that you just do it once and then forget about it, right? Because as your project evolves, oftentimes the scope of your work can increase, the scope of the project can increase, and there could be change requests that's going to throw curveballs and you might have to do it all over again. So I just want you to think that business analysis is not as simple as it sounds, because on paper it should be straightforward, but in real life there are so many other variables that can really throw you off, and you just have to think that it's a cycle that needs to happen multiple times throughout the project in order to have a really strong understanding of what are the key requirements and why are you doing this and for whose benefits. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.